some really awesome news for you guys. We are going live. You can see here in the center, we have all of our new logos for our different groups that we will be presenting. Essentially, we are moving around on the kind of mid-Atlantic area there, starting in Charleston, coming up within 2 weeks, or just exactly 2 weeks. I guess less than 2 weeks at this point. So make sure you register if you're going to be around in that area. Essentially, we are going to have all of us in person. So I'll be down there and packing up my bags. We're going to be live in Charleston. Starting in Charleston, as I mentioned, moving over to Raleigh, Virginia Beach, Richmond, DC, and Baltimore. In these meetings, we'll actually be holding the same presentation, a case study, designing and prefabricating multi-trade racks. The panelists will share their insights on collaboration and technology and how that helped them increase the speed and quality of this project. So whether you're an engineer, an architect, a fabricator, a general contractor, we invite you to this session, once again, live, to get your valuable knowledge and lessons learned, not only from you, but to converse with me, with the board, and of course, the panelists that we have live. I'm going to stop sharing and welcome Jason. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, Dana.
And maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, Jason.
I'm a BIM coordinator, architectural designer in our Quad Cities office. Do a lot of troubleshooting in file management, workflow processes and such, visualization, a little bit of everything.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today at BIMxt.
Thanks for having me. So you guys can see my screen now?
Sure can.
Okay, great. So the tip would be to start off with the camera view. It doesn't necessarily matter the contents of the camera view right off the bat. View templates are always awesome for getting things set up and establishing everything else. And once you get that camera view set up, launch Enscape from that. Then from here, I usually will start to create VR tours from within Enscape. The first part of that is just kind of getting some visual settings established, creating some presets for those settings based off of where I'm sitting in the scene. Sun positions, shadows in that. And one benefit you can get from these visual presets is they can start to be tied into your view management system. When you first open view management, it opens all the cluttered views from your Revit file. We can create new views from this, or we can edit these. When we edit them, we can favorite them. And part of them being favorites is getting them into an organized tour. And I'll just click edit on this one real quick here and show. We give it a name. We can click the star here to favorite it. We can assign any one of our visual presets and then save that. And once we save that preset, then if we get into any position at all, we can always come back to this position using that preset. And what I end up doing with this is creating a numbered view tour around a building. So I can take a client through all of the angles around the building without having to actually walk through it and jumble your way through that. The nice thing with doing this also is I can start to flip around to other sides of the building, and because of those visual presets, my sun positions always kind of follow along and I'm not working in shadowed areas. And just helps to make things easier. You can always navigate wherever you want outside of this. And even go inside the building, run around. You can change your manual presets on the fly if you wish. That works great. But then coming back to your view management will always override what you've maybe manually set. So we can start to create a nice little tour of everything using that. You can also start to use batch rendering and other tools like that once you get these view management set up. And that's really about it for the tips. If anybody has any
Could
questions
this
or
be
anything.
could this be exported as like a video almost where you set
Ye-
this up to be almost like a walkthrough?
I do have a video in this. You do have to create it separate. It does set up with a camera cues, and it's similar to most of the other video editing out there. I think Twinmotion and other programs will do that also. We don't do a whole lot of video tours. I did, just for the fun of it, come into this and make a video within a video or within the VR tour on this and set computers up to look like they're actually doing things. We've got company branding videos running on all the TVs in here. So it's kind of some cool stuff you can do with that.
When I could even see you like running this video in the lobby space of a new office, or trying
Yeah,
to even in architecture firms, we love to show off our work, right? And having that in our conference rooms or in our lobbies, having these
yeah,
dynamic videos, that would be really cool.
yeah, it's great.
Well,
And
thank
you
you
can
so
see you can
much,
kind of
Jason.
fumble around as you're walking. So that's what's nice with these presets is you don't have to worry about stumbling into walls.
Right. It's almost like a street view, like clicking on the preset space of where your destination might be, right?
Yes, when you're working with a client, it makes for a much more smooth experience going from view to view.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jason. That
Yep.
was fantastic. I wish I got to play more inside of Enscape. I know that our visualization teams rely heavily on Enscape. So I went ahead and threw a link to Enscape in Jason's area. We do have some questions popping up actually from Christopher Alexander. Thank you so much, Christopher. Having a hard time getting my videos to center through my walkthroughs. Any tips? Maybe we could have a
Videos to center. I think that's just making sure you get the appropriate positions located in
for your eye elevation and such.
Yeah, I've kind of struggled with that too. Sometimes when you swoop around a corner, it tends to twist the camera a little bit. I don't have a lot of experience creating the videos, so I've never really messed with that a lot, but I kind of feel that pain a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like creating 3 views and best tips and tricks on that and assigning materials could probably be its own full session, right?
Yeah, for sure. We're finding that walkthroughs, like video game style walkthroughs, are becoming kind of our normal. We're getting away from doing videos, doing more actual walkthrough or VR sessions while in Enscape with our clients. And it's been great because we've actually identified some problematic areas before it got to the construction site.
Absolutely. I know that we use it as almost like a clashing kind of coordination tool
Yep,
internally of being
yep.
able to walk through, but also during construction, we've been kind of overlaying it with AR, which has been very successful in some of our projects as well.
Yes, we've been doing similar things too.
We'll have to have a presentation on that. I'll have to have you back, Jason.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us, and ensure you keep the questions coming, you guys. Really appreciate that. So just because they're next down the presentation list here, we'll move over to Nathan with the Wild. How you doing, Nathan?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Go ahead and get your
Share my
screen shared, and we'd love to hear a little bit about you and your background as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let me go ahead and get my screen up.
Absolutely.
And confirming that everyone can see my screen right now.
Yep, we sure do.
All right, perfect. So Nathan Cenovski, I am coming from Autodesk with the XR department from Autodesk, and here to talk to you a little bit about the Wild and Prospect, the 2 current VR-based design review tools that we have available. So as a little bit of as background goes, myself, here's a little slide on me, basic info. I was previous to this, I was a member of the Wild as an independent startup. The Wild had also purchased Prospect back in 2021. And so we were working with both products. They're kind of wholly disparate products that solve generally the need for VR-based design review in a collaborative sense. And there's a bit of a Venn diagram where they overlap, and then there's strengths and weaknesses with each one, where depending on your use case, one might be better than the other. Was working there, and then about a year ago, a little over a year, Autodesk came by and acquired the Wild, and in the process also picked up Prospect. So currently the entire team got moved over into the Autodesk ecosystem, and we're kind of maintaining the scrappy startup mentality while also having the massive resources and brain power of Autodesk to help us to kind of bring about the next generation of VR and AR tools for the future as well. So if we're ready to dive in, Dana.
Please do, Nathan. We'd
All right,
love to have
go
you.
right ahead. All right, so just want to give like a basic overview of what we're trying to do. Jason's presentation on Enscape, and also probably what you'll see a little bit with Twinmotion as well. Great tools, beautiful tools that have the amazing visual graphics that we don't really, to be completely frank with, we don't have the visual graphics like that. We're kind of fitting a different need, a different use case for this. What we're trying to do is bring people in through earlier stages in the design process, making it so that they can convert their models from Revit, Navisworks, and other tools into a collaborative VR session for review as they go through the process. So we want to take these 3D designs from a 2D screen and present them into an immersive format. This helps to accomplish a lot of the simple goals of resolving issues that come up in the design review process, such as looking at a 3D design on a 2D screen and the mistranslations and errors that can come from something like that. So generally speaking with VR, of course, we're all VR fans, and we want to convey the feel for the project first and foremost. Get someone into their design at a one-to-one scale so that they can see the perspective, a different perspective in a way that makes it so that errors and issues just smack you right in the face. There are things that can hide on a 2D screen that are not going to be able to hide in a 3D, in an immersive 3D environment. So we use this for a lot of different aspects, such as the design review, coordination of different teams, the ideation also for early stages of the design review process, and also coordinating with other teams so that we can get in a fully federated model and make sure the various systems aren't conflicting with each other. And that just gets a lot easier when you're in an immersive environment and everybody's on the same page. So I'd like to start off, we'll kind of look at each one of the tools that we have here briefly. Prospect is one of the first tools I want to go over. And so Prospect of our two tools is kind of like the workhorse. It tends to be less frills, less, you can really less ability to do an open-ended world, and it's very constrained and targeted on what it wants to accomplish. But that constraint lends to an elegance. It's a tool specifically fit for your mid to late stage design review that is intended to do that one job and do it extremely well. So best for bringing in multiple disciplines, coordination across models, finding clashes, even ones that your automated clash detection software does not pick up. So your soft clashes and issues that might come up that aren't absolutely apparent with the automated clash detection software. And so there's a few different workflows that we have to work with that. And we work with Revit, Navisworks, and a number of non-Autodesk tools as well as generic 3D file formats. So quick video just to show you the basic overview of what you get with Prospect, kind of a rapid fire situation. So the process of moving a file over is incredibly easy. We have a plugin for both of these tools. You open up your BIM model, click on the plugin, press a couple, maybe one or two more buttons, and then you're generated into VR. Easy and quick to move in. And then you can have an immersive meeting with multiple people inhabiting the same space with native audio so that everybody's looking at the same thing from the perspective of being inside of the design long before you get to construction. And it helps everyone to get on the same page and align while you're working with multiple disciplines and multiple stakeholders. As well, there's a number of different tools in here to help you in this process, make sure we can keep track of anything that maybe is an issue, and we can view these persistently in VR, and they can also be exported out of the system. This is also available for view on desktop. Of course, it's always a better experience in VR. You get that sense of space, you get that wow factor, but you can also bring in people that are either unable or unwilling to get into VR, because unfortunately, some people still don't like to strap on a headset. So they can
some people I feel still say that it makes them nauseous being in that complete immersive environment, right? Being on a tablet or watching it even through a conference room screen when somebody else is navigating might be an easier barrier of entry to people who maybe aren't necessarily comfortable in that type of environment.
That's 100% true. And one of the other things about it, though, is that the nausea I'm seeing is kind of declining. The rate of nausea is declining because people are the technology is getting better. So the frame rate is what tended to be one of the things that cause a lot of nausea. And as the technology gets better, you still have it here and there, but it really tends to be less common of a thing for people to experience than it used to be.
Like the extreme motion sick people maybe might experience some delay or, that kind of effect, but absolutely. And I just absolutely love the way it creates almost this, like you're saying, integrated conference room style collaboration setting where everybody's looking at the same thing. Everybody's hearing the same audio. I mean, I think that is taking that from an individualistic perspective of being able to coordinate these things in 3D and truly being able to collaborate in that way.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Exactly. Well said. So I'm going to go run through a couple of case studies just to give you some examples from clients that have used this. It can be something as a bit more dry, like this case study that we're going to start off with, but this just kind of shows that Prospect isn't limited just to something like reviewing the design of a building. We actually have a lot of infrastructure projects that are being used in Prospect to check out site conditions. So taking some civil 3D, Navisworks, even near Earth data to get GIS data included in there. We had in this case study, this was a gravel corridor. So verifying the slope, the cut fill limits, and getting an opportunity so people could actually almost visit the site of construction much more easily than actually having to go there, just creating a virtual environment where they're able to join into this. So a bit dry, just to be completely frank, but sometimes that's exactly what we need. Another case study that I think is interesting is we worked with Kane Group over in London for a model on a historic hotel in downtown London. So they had to move all of the mechanical systems from the roof because they were converting it into a penthouse, and they wanted to actually bore out a subterranean level that did not exist to move the mechanical systems down there to make room to put on penthouse hotel rooms.
I see it in the next slide. Are you the slide 8, the King Group?
Excuse me, I think I'm sharing my wrong.
Yeah, maybe you're sharing the preview screen. No worries. Yeah. That's why I'm here.
Thank you very much, Dana.
No worries.
Yeah,
no worries.
Perfect. Okay. So yes, Kane Group was having to drill out a subterranean level. In order to do this, they had to do a project that previously was unthinkable, right? So they had to drill out, create a subterranean level, and then lower all the equipment down by a shaft. They trained for this. They gave the crane operators a feel for what the actual conditions would look like under using Prospect. And they also brought in the owners and the engineers to review this the project and the various moving parts of this project within Prospect. And the head of the project basically gave us a quote of saying that, this was going to be nearly impossible without the ability to view this in VR and to get a general feel for what everything was going to happen. And also it helped to speed the project along because the owners could understand what they were trying to accomplish much easier by seeing it in VR, because VR gives you the opportunity to, if you're an owner, you're a lay person, and you're not an expert in looking at BIM or schematics, then this is something anybody can understand, and it just comes across like that. And let's move forward on the next one. All right, this one, real quick one, just want to show you some of the things that you can actually do. Basically took multiple different data sets, brought them all together, FBX mesh, a mesh of point clouds, GIS data, InfraWorks, all of this together, and we're able to generate an entire 56-acre site where you could see the entire site, and you could actually enter into the buildings. So creating a very large facility that was able to be explored, and for some of these like larger mega projects, something a bit stretching of what we were able to do. And Dana, how are we doing on time? Are we?
We are good. We have about 5-10 minutes.
All right. So real quick one, we've seen a lot more of our clients looking at infrastructure projects. And this is a very brief video just showing the process of exporting civil 3D data into FBX, bringing it into Prospect. So then you can get some ideas about or a representation of how a infrastructure project might work in situ. So getting the topography, how this might look for the entire within context of the land, and also giving you the ability to explore that and identify any issues that might come up as well. And again, all of this is going to be online collaborative, so bringing in multiple stakeholders from various parts, from various different entities, so that they can experience this as well. All right, let me get out of here.
And so it seems like various pieces and parts were taken from Prospect in the wild. Can you talk to that a little bit about how those delineations were made, if at all?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the cases I've shown so far have been extensively Prospect, exclusively Prospect.
You can see it up in the top left corner there.
Yeah, and so Prospect tends to do better with like complex MEP projects, fully federated infrastructure, kind of like getting into the heavy nitty-gritty type of projects, where the wild tends to be more of a tool for designers and architects. And in that, it also gives the ability for designers and architects to work on earlier stage stuff, ideate a little bit, present, do some kind of almost pitch meetings, if you will. So they're kind of two different use cases. And so each one has its strengths and weaknesses, but these are definitely two different use cases. All right. Does that answer your question, or?
Yep, totally.
Okay. All right. So speaking of which, let's get over to the wild. So just like I was mentioning before, and we can see my screen still?
Yep.
Okay. So bid and proposal meetings, early stage master and space planning, interior layouts. That's kind of the bread and butter of the wild. We're dealing with generally projects that are a little bit smaller in scope, but maybe a bit more aesthetically focused. Generally, that's where the wild is a bit more stronger, aesthetically focused, and also ideation, kind of conceptual, that you can also have a bit of a back and forth with a client. Quick video again to show some of those abilities. We also have this wonderful virtual charrette environment that's available in the wild, where you can bring in 2D assets to support your conversation. So here we're showing some of the ins and outs of a site, presenting some optionality of general design, kind of doing an exploded axiom here. So using all the abilities of the wild to present all multiple different facets when you're getting into the early stage and figuring out exactly what you want from the design, and bringing people in there, including the clients, into an environment that is totally immersive, and you can manipulate, share things, break things apart, kind of break them apart and put them back together. Offers a lot of abilities for you to tell a story in a much more robust way. Now, let me bring this up. 1 second. And the final one that I do want to show you guys, this is a bit of a longer video, so I'm just gonna kind of show this, and we'll talk over it, do some questions, and finish up here. one of the other things that we see a lot of is that space planning. So you can also bring in 3D assets that are separate from the model that can be manipulated and moved around. And that ability gives people an opportunity to do some floor planning, space planning. We see it a lot in healthcare. Our clients will actually bring in doctors and nurses to check out operating rooms or any sort of facility where they're going to have to do some sort of work. And then they can bring in 3D models of their equipment, move it around, experience the space at scale, and figure out, okay, does this workflow work for us? If it does, great, let's move forward. If it doesn't, let's move this machine 6 inches over, et cetera, replace it with something smaller. See that a lot in healthcare, and we also see it in early stage manufacturing planning. So we have some people that are working with their factories, bringing in 3D models of the equipment that they'd actually be working with, and then doing kind of almost a dry run of how would this workflow go? Would we be able to achieve all our goals within this space with all this equipment? Or is there something that really needs to be moved around a bit? So skip ahead a little bit just to give you guys an idea on this. But that's a kind of quick crash course, and I think we're coming up on time. Did we have any questions that were in the chat or anything along those lines?
It looks like a few of them have been addressed. I guess one that looks like it's one similar to that I had in terms of hardware and how maybe your client is on site with a tablet or what have you on their phone. How do we experience? Would you say it's an equal experience across the board, regardless of hardware, or does that play a factor at all?
With the obvious caveat of you're not going to get the immersive feel of the space with a 2D screen. It just will not happen, right? Mm-hmm. The way that you can in VR. That's the kind of the entire premise, right?
Absolutely.
With Prospect, you have a full functionality of the tools if you're coming in on desktop. With the Wild, it's a view-only mode if you're coming in on desktop. The Wild we have an AR tool. It's a nice extra little feature, but it's nothing that, no one should ever purchase the Wild for our AR tool, right? And the AR tool works on iPads and basically presents itself almost like a portal to this virtual environment where you could even see others as similar to this video, where if somebody else was in VR and you were on site using the AR tool, you could see this other avatar taking these 3D objects, moving them around, and you could have somebody on site with a tablet viewing the manipulation of the model at the same time.
Yeah, it seems like some people in the past have had issues with especially larger scale models and performance.
Yeah, so extremely large models, especially if you're on an untethered Quest, it's problematic, just to be frank.
When just playing in VR, my nieces and nephews and all of that, I got a VR just so that I could, spend time with them. To be honest, they've always got their headsets on. And I know that, your operating system just for standard games really does make a difference. Basic ones.
Yeah, absolutely. So, usually we have people on untethered Quests. That's the majority of our clients for good reason. However, your GPU you're dealing with there is basically a cell phone GPU processor. And there are some limits to how much it can handle, especially with the way our system is set up so that it loads the entire model instead of streaming so that you have a continuous experience and there's no lag with that. So there's a trade-off there. And the way to get around that, especially with Prospect, is if you have a high GPU rig, drafting computer or something like that, cabling in can resolve a lot of those issues. There's still always a limit, and we are looking at taking care of this and making it no longer a problem. And there's going to be some stuff coming out in the near future on that side of things. But they're 100% correct. That does represent a limitation. So cable into a high-end gaming computer or break the model up into chunks. And
last question. Is it headset specific? Like, I know that they're coming out with the headsets with the backpacks and all of that. So maybe I wouldn't have to tether.
Potentially. I mean, it depends on it. The GPU is the name of the game if you're loading the entire model and not streaming, right? So it depends on the processor. I'm going to assume that Apple's processor is probably going to be significantly higher than the Quest.
But it will work with any of the headsets. I could play inside of the platform with the Quest or the Oculus or whatever.
Yeah, we work with pretty much every headset, every modern headset that's out there, with the exception of the Varjo, just because they're hand tracking and we don't have hand tracking functionality.
Okay, and I think actually the newer, one of the newer ones have the controls have GPUs in them as well, so they're hand tracking, I believe, as well.
Yeah, and people do use the Varjo with outside controllers that map to it, and that can work. But picking up a normal Varjo that is hand tracking based will not work. But yeah, pretty much every other modern headset.
Awesome. Well, keep the questions coming, you guys. Looks like there's some really great ones popping in there for Nathan. Really appreciate you guys.
And I'll move over to answer those there. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I am going to jump back in and present really quickly. Once again, make sure that you're at the very least giving us your location and your name so that you have a chance to win at next month's meeting. And you guys you see my screen, correct? Can I get a head nod, Sam? You're the only one. Okay.
Yes, yes, you're good. Sorry.
Thank you so much. You're the only one I see, so apologies. In addition, if you have any information, maybe you use a different rendering engine or a different way of getting into AR, VR with your Revit models, we'd love to hear about it. Make sure that you throw in a note here, give us information about what you guys are experiencing, how you're getting your clients in, having this collaborative experience, right? I'm sure many of you, at the very least, are rendering, right? So what are you guys doing? Let's hear from you. And once again, keep the questions coming. We have these stacks of notes here that you can pull over, correspond to your discipline. You can see the legend over here. I'm in my T, so I'm going to pull the little computer guy. And of course, you can ask your question, give us your information, share your tip. Maybe you have an awesome Enscape tip. We'd love to hear it. Maybe you have a great idea for a visualization presentation. Let us know. So without further ado, Epic Games. I'm super excited to hear about this presentation, Sam. You guys are, I feel like, the ones behind the scenes making all of this happen, right? With the Unreal Engine.
Yeah, there's a lot happening, a lot going on. So we're happy to be here and to kind of showcase it a bit and explain it further. So I'm just making sure Dana, can you see my screen now?
I sure can.
Okay, awesome. So I am Sam Anderson. I am a technical marketing manager at Epic Games. I've been here for about 3 years, but prior to Epic, I was at Shop Architects in New York, and I worked there for about 5 years and used a lot of these other tools that we've showcased today. So it's kind of fun to see where they're at, Prospect and Enscape. And I love what Nathan said also, that kind of each one has their own use case within the design workflow and process. So I think that's very valid, especially with Twinmotion, some of the stuff I'll be showing today. So it's been very cool to kind of see all the different visualization opportunities out there. And, hopefully that allows architects to be able to better communicate with their clients or stakeholders. So I'll go ahead and dive in here a little bit. It may be a little confusing. I work at Epic Games, but I'm showcasing Twinmotion. I'll also reference Unreal Engine. So to kind of give a little bit of background about that. So Epic is the kind of larger ecosystem, the larger umbrella for all of this. If you have kids, or maybe even you play yourself, you're probably familiar with Fortnite and Rocket League. And so that's the kind of publishing side of Epic Games. We also have a tools side where we enable creators to actually create that content. So a lot of those games are created in Unreal Engine. And one of the things that's created inside of or using Unreal Engine is Twinmotion. So Twinmotion is going to be the easy visualization tool for many creators to be able to visualize their content and BIM models. Now, within that, there's other tools as well that kind of tie in to assist with those. So we have Quixel and ArtStation and Sketchfab so that people can go access different assets and different models quite easily. So this is another graphic just kind of showing how it all works. So Unreal Engine really is the backbone of it. And then all of these tools kind of plug into it. And so that is including Twinmotion. So what is Twinmotion? It is a visualization tool. That's what we're all here for. And so I wanted to show some graphics here of some of the visualization techniques. One thing I love is that Twinmotion is built on Unreal Engine, meaning that we are able to take advantage of some of the graphics and the quality that comes out of Unreal Engine inside of Twinmotion. So many of these are rendered using the path tracer, which is a rendering technique inside of Twinmotion that's going to allow you to have better reflections, refractions, ambient occlusion. So you can see like where the car tire hits the ground there. It's rendering out quite nicely. Now, where does this fit into BIM? So a lot of the BIM models and data that you're creating and designing in, you're going to be able to bring that inside of Twinmotion. Now, it's not just a closed box there. Once you bring your data in, you're then able to take stuff into Unreal Engine if you wanted to. So in my experience, I have been able to create visualizations in Twinmotion very easily. You can use virtual reality with it. You may not need to take it into Unreal Engine, but perhaps you want to build out a digital twin with sensors in an office space. You could have the model that you created inside of Twinmotion for the design process, and then take that into Unreal Engine for post-occupancy to better understand how the building is being used. And so I did want to bring up, I know I came here last year to talk a little bit about VR for Twinmotion. And since then, we have partnered with Autodesk. So that means that for anyone that has a Revit subscription, you now have access to Twinmotion. So depending on time here, I do have a Revit model up that I can demo exactly what that means, but I know this is very exciting for us and for Revit users, so we're happy to see this go live. Now, if you are still kind of like, what is Twinmotion? How do you use it? I'm going to run through some different slides here of like what it means to use it, how do you build it up, and what are the use cases for it. So here you'll see that we have the ability to import different geometry. So you could direct link to your Revit model. You could import SketchUp models as well, and as well as Rhino models. So you could also use this as a place to kind of compile different models. We know that you may work with a landscape architect who uses a different system for developing their data and their models. So this allows you to bring in multiple things, and then you can also synchronize your models to your Revit model. Once you do that, you can build out your environment. So you'll see here that I'm building out these trees. And one very fun thing is that many of our assets are what we like to call smart assets, meaning that I can change the age and color of those trees quite easily with the slider here on the right-hand side. And I can do this for different foliage as well, but I'm just showing the trees here as a quick way to build out your context models. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we are a part of the larger Epic ecosystem. So we do have Quixel Megascans, which is a team within Epic that's going out and doing scans of real life environment as well as different assets. And then we're making that available to our users. And then we also have Sketchfab. So if you're the library of assets we have just aren't doing it, and the Quixel isn't quite doing it, you are able to search on Sketchfab inside of Twinmotion and then go download any models there and bring them in. So it kind of opens up the world for all of our creators. Now, as I mentioned earlier as well about the different rendering techniques, so we have our real-time raster render that is kind of, as you're moving throughout the space, you could build things very, very easily, drop stuff in, be able to walk around in VR. But say you want to then do a high-end visualization from that, you can hit R on your keyboard or that little icon at the very top here to turn on the path tracer. Now, this is, yes, it does require your graphics card to be compatible. So that's going to be the DirectX 12 graphics card that's going to work well with this. And so you'll see kind of the difference in just the way that it reads global illumination and the shadows and some of the reflections as well. So when it's time to share your models, we have a couple of different options. So we do have the ability to connect to virtual reality. So this is one use case of that, but we also have a few different Twinmotion cloud opportunities. So this means that you could push it to the cloud for someone who does not have a headset or doesn't have a high spec computer, and then they'll be able to walk around the space. So there's two different modes there. We have the presentation mode and then the panorama set mode. So as I know we talked a little bit about earlier with Jason, that you may, don't want to bump into a wall, or you want to kind of have those preset views because you didn't design the back of house. That's going to allow you to do that. So have someone be able to jump from space to space. So I don't have that here, but it is an option for our users. And then this is just showcasing what you can do once you bring it into Unreal Engine. So you can take your model, take that into Unreal Engine. There you can build out different sequences. You could do something with AR if you wanted to. Pretty much Unreal, if you have something in your mind, it's going to tell you to do it. The difference between the two is there is a little bit of a larger learning curve for Unreal Engine. So Twinmotion really is for those creators who don't have a lot of time to develop and learn and develop the skills in Unreal Engine. We want to have an easier outlet for you. So I'll go ahead and encourage you to explore your own. So if you do have Revit, you are able to download it. You can download a free trial and check it out yourself. So here we have a lake house demo. So if you go to File, Demo Scenes, we have this lake house demo that you can pull up. I find that I personally learn a lot from looking at demos and understanding how one sets it up. So I just wanted to point that to your attention in case you're interested in exploring and don't want to bring in one of your own projects.
No, I'd assume I'm only asking because I'm guessing it will be asked. Does it take tokens?
I'm sorry, I don't even know. What do you
for and maybe tokens? It probably doesn't.
Okay. Is this
so it's just free? You say it's a free trial, but I guess.
Yeah. So it's a free trial. Like we have an educational trial, a commercial trial, and then a free trial. So you could go. I can send a link here in a moment as well. Send a link to that so that anyone can go and download it and try it out. But if you are already using Revit, maybe I'll have a little bit of time here in a bit to showcase that. But if you're already using Revit, there's a plugin for it that you'll be able to see. So I'll run through this quickly, and then I can show exactly what that looks like and what that means.
I hate to ask price, but you say free, and I'm like, is it really free? Or when I press a button to import, is it gonna charge you in the back end or something?
Good question. No, so if it's the commercial use. So for the commercial license, it's $4.99, and if you're just using it to explore, then it is free. So it won't, there won't be a trick in there or anything. I will send the licensing link here, just so if you're like, what does that mean for commercial, or like, what am I using it for?
Thank you.
Then you'll be able to get that. And like I said, if you're a Revit user, then you have access to it. So you may not need to go through the commercial license if you're already a Revit user. So hopefully that cleared it up.
Apologies, and I'll make sure that I put the link. So no more talk about price.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Sorry.
Oh, good. And so, I'll go ahead and continue. I came here, I believe it was like a year ago. So I did some demo for Twinmotion. So I just wanted to kind of talk about our most recent updates. And then if we have time, I'll move on. So the user interface may look different from the last time I came. It's a little bit more cohesive with the rest of the Epic ecosystem, including Unreal Engine. So you may have noticed that if you're a user. We also have some new templates. So you'll see we have some product visualization templates here, but that could also be great for furniture if you're working with any furniture or want to help visualize something. The day and night skies is great for architects. It already has a bunch of scenes set up, ready to go. So I encourage you to check it out. And then we also have some path tracer enhancements, so you can get some fog in there, some improvements to the water as well. And then we have a glass improvement that's going to allow you to have that color going through the global environment, so that you really have an understanding of what the space feels like if you're using colored glass. So I know that can be very important if you're speccing out a glass that has a certain, feature, or I know I worked on one project where it was like 5 layers of glass, so it was a little bit green. So we wanted to make sure that we understood, that people could understand what that feels like in the space. And then we also have some new materials. So for any of our interior designers out there, under the Product Viz materials, we have a ton of different materials for you. And then just yesterday, a new Twinmotion came out that has a composition grid in it as well. So I'll try to show that here. So let me go ahead. I'm going to jump into my Revit project that I have open. So I have Revit open up here. I went into a view and created a 3D view here. And this one I'm working in is 2023.1, but it's also available in 2024 if you're already on that. But you'll see in this view tab, I have the Twinmotion button here. I can click this and we have the option to have export to a datasmith file. So this is if you are working with a team that is your visualization team, you could export it as a datasmith file and they'll be able to import it into Unreal Engine or Twinmotion. But I'm actually just going to go ahead and select open in Twinmotion. So we'll let it do its work here. The time that takes is dependent on how big your project is. So if it takes a little bit of time, this one's a small one. I just wanted to give you a heads up. So here I have a new project. I have a couple of different options here for importing. I'm going to keep everything as is and hit OK here. And it's going to pop up in my scene. So here it is linking to the Revit model. And then I could come in here and I could start to edit some of the materials. So if I wanted to come into, let's do a paneled material here. So I can increase the scale. So for anyone who's never used Twinmotion before, this is the user interface. So the left-hand side is really going to be our library of all of the different assets. You can search up here if you wanted to find something in particular. So if I were to type in stone, go back to my materials here, you'll see that we have many different materials that you can pull from. So I'll go ahead and drag and drop that in. If I wanted something a little bit more specific, I could type in slate, and then I can drag, let's do one of these roofs here, and I can start to build this out. So this is what you're going to get with the direct link. If I go into this import button here down at the bottom, this tab at the bottom is kind of the workflow that you use. So import materials, populate, create media, and then export. But the cool thing is once I have my Revit model in here, I can always go in and refresh it or synchronize with my Twinmotion model. And then I can also, if I move something inside of Twinmotion and want to reset it back, I have some of those options here. So I could spend time really developing this out, but I know that this is a short presentation. So I do have some resources that I have up on my screen, but I'll share them in the mural. So I'm going to go into the mural and I'll stop my screen share and share the resources and see if there's any questions. I know this was a very quick, here's Twinmotion. So
no, it's been great. It's been absolutely wonderful. I love to see the aging of the trees. That was crazy. I can only imagine like what we could do in terms of like patinas and all kinds of things in terms of like where that could go with even materiality.
It's super helpful. So that's, for like the trees and stuff, even if you're changing different seasons, then it will change the color of the trees. So it can be quite fun, even if you've never used it and want to spend one lunch playing around with it. I do think it's quite fun.
That's fantastic. Great.
You already put the license.
I did. I was super quick.
Amazing. I love it.
Back here. It looks like there's only one question. It looks like your presentation is super clear. Looks like somebody's worked with Twinmotion and on a large scale project in an aerial view, it looks like they were getting some distance range limitations with shadows and other things, in particular with the newer versions, they're saying. So I don't know whether you know about any of that. I'm sure we could.
Yeah, let me do another screen share. That's
Please.
A great question.
We have about 5 minutes. So
okay,
take your time.
Great. So I'm gonna just do a screen share and I'm gonna just troubleshoot this right now and with you. And
look at you, a live troubleshooter. Bold, Sam.
We'll see.
Love that.
So I just dropped in a light here. One thing for any Twinmotion user, as a tip, so we have these shadows enabled here, and you'll see there's this little S here. If your file is running very, very slowly and you have like a light in here for every single recessed light, and you have that enabled, that actually might slow it down. So I did just want to point that out, that that is something that could be affecting your file. So I guess it would be good to kind of understand, you must be using the real-time raster mode. So let me first just look quickly here in the preferences to see, I know we have some, so for instance, for some, we have a quality control, so that like grass, you only see it a certain amount away, and then as you move closer to it, it appears. So I don't think we have anything for lighting here, but I just wanted to check with the most recent update. So no, I'm not seeing anything here. If you message me on LinkedIn, I can try to help figure out to see what the issue might be. You know, making sure that this attenuation right here, so this is the circle, the sphere is how far that light will go. So as I move it bigger, it's going to increase the size. You know, just with depending on if it's an aerial view and there's a lot of information in there, it might just be hitting the limitations of the computer graphics itself. So there's only so much information that can be stored as far as light maps go. So it might be reading the information as you get closer. So feel free to message me on LinkedIn if we want to dive into that a little bit further.
Well, that was really fantastic, and it's amazing to see, you know, all of the new advancements, just the simple graphics of, like we were saying, with the trees. Another question, it looks like somebody was asking if you could move objects in Twinmotion. Particularly, they were trying to move like a tree once it's been imported in.
Yeah, so if you have for instance, you have a chair inside of your Revit project that you're direct linking into Twinmotion. You can move that in Twinmotion. It's not bi-directional, so it's not like it's going to replace your chair or move your chair inside of Revit. But if I moved my chair in Twinmotion and wanted to go back to the original position that it is in Revit, then I'm able to reset that inside of Twinmotion, which was that little option I hit whenever I was in the import page. So we see a lot of people use low poly elements inside of Revit or their BIM model of choice. And then once they bring it into Twinmotion, there's an option to replace your object. So you could select all of them and replace them with a little bit higher fidelity chairs.
Got it. Looks like there's another question about the previous presentation, which I have actually went ahead. It looks like it was April of 2022. I went ahead and put a red border around Sam's previous presentation. So you can get to the recording over there on the right if you want to check out her previous presentation on, and it was actually a lengthier presentation, I believe, than today. We gave, it was just 2 presenters at least in that presentation. So once again, thank you all. Thank you, Sam, for coming for a second time and joining us and telling us about Twinmotion. Thank you to the other 2 presenters, Nathan and Jason, and of course, all of this wonderful activity on the mural. We hope to see you live in Charleston for those of you guys who can make it. Once again, you can get to all of those links up in the top left corner next to the BIMxt logos. You can register there or register for the closest meeting to your location, see information about those. Our Baltimore and DC dates have yet to be set, but those will be up and coming. So once again, thank you all. Thank you to the presenters. Thank you to CAD Micro for hosting this and organizing it, and hope to see you in our live sessions. Yeah, all have a wonderful day.